Hello and welcome to Stained Glass Gaming, where I turn video games into glass. For Valentine's Day, I am making the red heart, referred to as the human soul in-game, from Undertale. I am making this as two pieces, the actual heart, and a clear piece to be able to hang the heart. Normally, 3-bladed scissors are used to take the width of the foil into account. I am using regular scissors for the outside of the heart, and the 3-bladed scissors for the top where the clear and red glass will join. I glue the pieces down using washable Elmer's glue, positioning the paper to use as little glass as possible. I take a glass cutter and score the glass. Think of it like cutting. Then break it using running pliers, lining up the score line with a black mark and then squeezing. I sweep away the tiny shards after every time I break the glass. It is not possible to cut right angles in glass. If I score a line halfway across the glass and break it, the break will continue all the way through the glass, even though I stopped halfway. To make right angles, I have several options. Use a ring saw, which is kind of like a bandsaw, a Dremel, or small grinding heads. I have a Dremel and small grinding heads and use those to make the right angles. Now I did cut myself on the glass. It's nothing serious, but I put on a band-aid to keep glass from getting in the wound. For the red glass, I grind the top and bottom as close to the paper pattern as possible, then switch to smaller grinding heads. I use a 1-inch, 1/4 inch, and 1/8 inch diameter diamond grinding bits. The grinder is filled with water to lubricate the grinding head. For the part where the red and clear glass join together, I use a Dremel with a diamond cutting disc, using water as a lubricant and to reduce the glass dust. I wear a respirator, safety glasses, long sleeve shirt, closed-toed shoes, and a bandana to keep as much glass dust off my skin as possible. The 1/8 inch bit I bought didn't fit on the shaft of the grinder, so I had to use the Dremel to widen it, which is why when it spins, it's not exactly centered, but I made sure the bit is tightly secured and won't fly off. Because this bit doesn't reach the water, I use a sponge to drip water on the piece as I work. Another alternative would be to set up a stand where the sponge is held against the grinding head. I squeeze water on the glass before I use the Dremel. Ideally, I should have put the glass in water and then cut, because I wouldn't have had to stop to lubricate every 5 seconds. But I will still figure out how to use the Dremel. When I tried this later, I had water splashing everywhere, which created a big mess. I had to make sure not to overheat the Dremel. Cutting the glass took longer than I thought it would. For the bottom of the heart, I ended up scoring the glass and breaking it, using the smallest diameter grinding head and then the Dremel for fine-tuning. Because I wasn't level with the Dremel, I used the grinding head to even everything out. I continue grinding both pieces so they will fit nicely together. I did overgrind on the red glass, but luckily the gap is not too large and I can fix it when I solder. Once the pieces are ground out, I remove the paper and wash the glass using Dawn dish soap. Once dry, I number the pieces, then move on to foiling. The foil is how the glass sticks together. The solder is the metaphorical glue that actually sticks the pieces together. Without foil, the solder wouldn't have anything to stick to. I use the 1/4 inch width black back foil, meaning the side that sticks to the glass is black and will be seen because the glass is transparent, and the other side is copper. I use black back foil because I will turn the solder black. I'll line up the width of the glass in the middle of the foil as much as possible. If I have overlap, I can use an X-Acto knife to trim it. I use a burnishing tool to press the foil onto the glass as I go. Before I fold the foil onto the edges of the glass, I cut the foil wherever there are corners, then go over the entire piece again with the burnishing tool to ensure a snug fit. This piece has a lot of corners and I struggle to line up the foil in some parts. I will have to do this 6 more times when I do the 6 other hearts in a later video, so hopefully I'll get the hang of it. I pin the pieces into place using push pins to make sure they don't move when I start soldering. Normally, I would use the paper pattern to make sure the pieces are aligned correctly, but since there are only 2 pieces, I don't need to use a paper pattern. Before I add solder, I put flux on the foil. The flux is what enables the solder to stick to the foil. Without flux, the solder would bead up and not stick. I start with tacking the pieces, which means putting a small amount of solder to hold the pieces together. Then I can solder the rest of the pieces. I am careful not to heat up the glass too much, because if I do, the glass will crack and I'd have to start all over. The foil also has a possibility of peeling away from the glass if the heat melts the adhesive. Tinning is when I apply solder to the edges of the foil. I use small gauge wire to make 2 hooks to hang the piece once it is finished. I use needle nose pliers to make the hook and cut it to the size I want, and tin the hooks before soldering them to the back of the piece. I use a fan to blow away the solder smoke because I use a lead tin mixture. I also wear a respirator as well when I solder. Once the piece is cooled off, I can clean the residual flux, solder, and permanent marker off the glass. I use a chemical solution called a patina to turn the solder black. I wear gloves and use an old toothbrush to apply the patina and scrub it into all the nooks and crannies. Follow me on Twitter at GlassArtGames to be notified when I upload a video and to see what I am working on next. Once I am finished, I wipe the residual patina off using a paper towel. Then apply car wax to make the solder appear shiny. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more. Happy Valentine's Day! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all through the next pane.